Alright, so today I will be doing a Q&A video for some comments that were left on my channel that I would like to do a little bit of a deeper dive into. So let's get right into it. Too bad the calf slicer isn't a real submission. Why isn't Sambo more widespread in the States? Yes, MMA and UFC. So boring. We got Bruce Parker. Are the sports Sambo guys significantly better at grappling than combat Sambo? I figure since the sports Sambists spend their time grappling, they should theoretically be superior to combat Sambists. So yes, Bruce, that is true. I wouldn't say it's like 100% better, right? The combat Sambo guys a lot of times do also train Judo by itself or Jiu-Jitsu or train with the sports Sambo guys. So they still have great grappling. But the sports Sambo guys, I would say, are about 40 to 50% better. They're typically going to beat the combat Sambo guys whenever they get to their grips. There's a good example of a Judo, a Russian Judo and combat Sambo champion. He's a youth champion. I need to look up his name and I'll put it on the screen, but he really just uses his throws to win in combat Sambo. He's very good. So a lot of times when sports Sambo guys, if they can just learn some like rudimentary striking or basic striking, they can get a grip and they will beat the combat Sambo guys. This is a good example with actually me as well. When I first did combat Sambo, I only had like 3 months of basic striking, and I fought a guy who's a striker, and he was lighting me up. He was beating me. But once I got a grip, I threw him twice for 4 points, and the match was over. So yes, the sports Sambo guys are definitely better at grappling overall. Can a combat Sambo guy still catch a sports Sambo guy here or there? Sure, they have the ability. Most of them are Judo black belts as well. But yes, the sports Sambo guys are better at grappling than combat Sambo. All right, Bruce Parker also asks, have you considered pro combat Sambo? Probably won't make you a millionaire though. Yes, I have considered it. There's not really a good place to do it here in the US. Pro combat Sambo, for those who don't know, is combat Sambo. Sometimes it's done on a mat, similar to regular combat Sambo. Sometimes it's done in a cage, but it's without headgear and no shin guards. So we don't have any headbutts in pro combat Sambo, but it's scored more like an MMA fight. It's really an MMA fight with the Kurka on, which I think is really cool. I would love to do it because honestly, I'm better when I have grips, and I'm already doing really well in MMA, so pro combat Sambo will be a lot of fun. He's right, won't make you a millionaire. It's not super popular, but would I do it for fun one day? Hell yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. How is Sambo different from MMA? Bobby Lee asks. All right, so Sambo is different from MMA in like the rule set. In MMA, first off, you have 3 rounds, and it's scored by a 10-9 must system. So whoever does the most damage in each round gets basically 1 more point, 10-9, 10-9, 10-9. And then at the end of that, it's judged unless there's a knockout, TKO, or submission. In combat Sambo, it's 1 5-minute round, and you only have that 5 minutes to gain more points. And there's a scoring system based on where you throw someone, pinning them, and if you knock them down, as well as penalties. So there's a very defined scoring system, specific ways to score: throwing someone flat on their back, 4 points, side is 2, butt, shoulder, or like chest area is 1 point unless you stay standing, and those scores double. Throwing them flat on their back is a total victory. So there's a defined scoring system in combat Sambo. Some of the other things you can do in combat Sambo you can't do in MMA is headbutts. But in pro MMA, you can do heel hooks and toe holds, which are not allowed in MMA, or in combat Sambo, sorry, excuse me. But those are some of the differences between combat Sambo and MMA, as well as we have the Kurka, which changes how the game is played just a little bit. There's a little bit less striking, more gripping up into the grappling, but that also has to do with scoring via the throws. So those are some differences. There's a few more, but we won't get into all of them. Maybe we'll do a full video on that soon. Next up, the mixture of striking, wrestling, and judo, I'm sure is exhausting. Yes, it is very exhausting. He said, I've had friends who are college wrestlers who get gassed very fast during striking. This is more of a consequence of not being used to the energy systems used in each one of these sports. So when I first got into striking, it was exhausting for me as well. Really, it's because you're tense All right, when you first get into striking, you're real tense and you're real scared. So your adrenaline is higher and your muscles are tense, taking up more oxygen. So that's why when a grappler goes to striking, they're real tired at first. But same thing for a striker going to grappling. You don't know those times whenever you can rest and have your muscles be loose and you're in a higher state of awareness. So therefore you're higher stress and you're going to get gassed out quicker. So that's like the reason why that's happening is a lack of understanding of the energy systems and how to move your body in these different sports. Yermo MMA also asks, do you think you could do a video on what it's like being a Sambo athlete in the USA? That was an interesting point on the funding in other countries via the USA. So yes, can definitely make a full video on that, but to kind of explain a little bit, in the US as a Sambo athlete, you are completely self-funded. Something I do is I try to find sponsors for my trips. When I do Sambo trips, I'll try to find sponsors and do advertisements for them, but you do have to really be on top of your social media game to get those sponsorships. Another thing is, most of us work full-time. We train after or before work, whereas like over in Russia or Eastern European countries, those guys are professional athletes. That's what they do. That's all they do. They are paid to do Sambo, they're housed, they're fed, everything like that. They go to colleges for Sambo. So in the US, we're working full time, we're training. It's really tough. It's really tough. And I will say that there's lower expectations for us on the world level, but I think we're getting better and we're going to continue to improve. All right, the true Mikester. Why isn't Sambo more widespread in the States? It's clearly the best all-around fighting system. Okay, so this one actually kind of parlays off the last one. Sambo isn't as widespread in the US, firstly because the Russian and ex-Soviet diaspora hasn't really started it and grown it a huge amount. Plus, they're in really localized area, like in Philly and New York. You got a lot of Sambo gyms. That's really where they're all at. And some of those guys, like Mikhail Kozytsky, is one of like the founders of USA Sambo, has done a great job growing it in that area. But the diaspora isn't everywhere across the US. And in places where that diaspora hasn't really taken hold, you're not seeing as much Sambo, except for something like Sambo Nation with Julian Sanchez. He's really spreading it out throughout the States. So really, one thing is not as big of a Russian and ex-Soviet diaspora. Another thing is funding. So starting a Sambo gym is hard. I would know. I got lucky. I had a pretty easy route to do it. But for a lot of people, getting a gym, getting a mat space is not easy. It costs money. So even if there is some people who know Sambo, a lot of times they're not able to just like start their own gym. And then it's not as known. Like, it's not a very widely known sport. So once you start that gym, if you're going to try to make money off of it, it's not so easy, because something like jiu-jitsu, they get people walking in all the time. It's talked about on Joe Rogan all the time. I mean, he talked about Sambo a little bit, but there's a lot of marketing for jiu-jitsu outside of what your gym does for marketing by itself. Whereas Sambo, we don't get as many walk-ins. We're getting a lot. It's getting better as it grows in the UFC and it's becoming more widely known. But it's definitely not as easy as something like jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai. So those are two big reasons as to why it's not as widespread in the United States. All right. Skeetism says, how did it happen that you got into Sambo? I mean, you sound American, didn't think it's popular or even a thing there. Started when I was 15 as a Russian boy with regular Sambo and transitioned to combat Sambo. For real, it's a very nice, well-rounded base for MMA. Yes, so I got into Sambo through Judo. I started in Judo when I was 8 years old and did really good in Judo, and I got noticed by Mikhail Kozytsky, the vice president of USA Sambo, and he invited me to the Pan American Championships. And that time, I thought Sambo was knockoff Judo. I didn't really think much of it. I was kind of a Judo purist. And I went to Pan Ams and actually lost to a good buddy of mine who you can see me training with nowadays, is Matias Munoz. And yeah, so after I lost to him and I saw Combat Sambo, I realized, man, I really like this sport. This is really cool. And I'd like to try Combat Sambo because I had done a little bit of boxing. I had done some like kickboxing and stuff, especially during COVID. And then I just kind of delved deep into it because it was too expensive really to try to make it to the Olympics in Judo, which was my original goal. And then I just deep dived into Combat Sambo and got into it, and have been part of the world team for about 5 years. This year I probably won't be traveling for the world team, but I've been part of it for a long time now, and I really love it. And yeah, I agree, it's really the best space for MMA. You're seeing Combat Sambo guys kill it in the UFC. So that's how I got into Sambo. I did compete in it once when I was a kid because there was nationals nearby, but I don't really count that too much. So yeah, thank you for your comment. All right, one in the chamber. Okay, this is a little bit of a, how do you say it? Diss comment in a way. Too bad the calf slicer isn't a real submission. It hurts, but it won't blow out a knee or anything. So yes, it definitely is a real submission, and I agree to some extent. It is definitely more of a pain compliance thing. It really, really hurts when someone hits a good calf slicer on you. But there is a point where it will start to tear ligaments in the knee because you have, like, you're bending something around something else, right? At some point, the top part will start to spread if you pull the leg enough. So there is a point where a calf slicer will start to pop ligaments and hurt things in your knee. So I don't agree completely, but in a lot of cases, people tap to it via pain compliance before it will break anything. Bombzo, yes, MMA and UFC. So boring to watch. It's two guys punching out of each other until one goes down, or two guys are cuddling each other for 3 or 5 rounds. Give me a boxing match any day of the week. So definitely disagree. Yes, there are boring grappling matches in the UFC and MMA, but overall the amount of skills involved in MMA, the striking, the grappling, the mixing of the two, I think is way more exciting than boxing, which is one-dimensional to me. If you just like striking, even better than boxing, like, go watch Muay Thai. Like, that's great. Go watch Muay Thai, go watch kickboxing. But MMA, the amount of nuance and skill involved with using your striking to get to a takedown, to work to a submission, the amount of variety that's involved in MMA, I think that's way more exciting. So yeah, Bombzo, definitely don't agree with you there. I think MMA is much more exciting than boxing. I've watched a lot of boring boxing fights too, where guys are just pitter-pattering and there's no knockout. They just go 12 rounds and nothing really happens. There's 1 or 2 highlights. So yeah, definitely don't agree with that, Bombzo. All right, Bombzo, boxing as it's the best way of fighting in the street. All right, so yes, boxing is good for the street. There's that really famous clip where the guy's in the elevator and he just knocks out 3 or 4 people. Boxing is great, but Combat Sambo involves boxing, right? That's only one aspect of it. If you're only capable in one aspect of fighting, I think on the streets, you're going to have a tough time sometimes because somebody may be a grappler. Somebody may get a hold of you before you even know they're there. They may come up behind you, grab you, and what are you going to do with your boxing at that point? So how could it be the best for the streets if it's so one-dimensional? That doesn't make any sense to me. Plus, if I throw someone on the concrete, they're done for. If I throw someone hard enough on the concrete, they're not getting up. It's over. Let's move on. If I'm not mistaken, in this drill, the jab is just a tool. It is to build the perfect jab. It's to build strong shoulders because the jab technique is wrong, but that puts more load on the shoulders, doesn't it? Okay, so this was on a drill, a shoulder conditioning drill that I do, where it's jab, jab 3 times, jab, jab 5 times, jab, jab 7 times. Yes, this drill is more for conditioning than technique. Not everyone in my gym has perfect jab technique. It takes time. We got a lot of beginners. We got a lot of more experienced people as well. But this drill is to specifically work on the conditioning for your shoulders. So not every drill has to be technique. Sometimes you should have specific drills to work on specific parts of your game. So one part of that would be shoulder conditioning. Another part of that might be technique drill. One might be a power drill. So it's good to have different drills to work on different aspects of because you can't really work on everything all at once. I see this a lot. I'll correct someone on one thing and another thing gets worse. But having a drill that focuses on one specific aspect of a technique or a throw or anything like that is very useful sometimes. Why in the hell would you give up the back to go for a calf slicer? All right, so this is on my calf slicer video where we do it from a hook, and actually in the title it says 1 move to finish when they defend the choke. So not always are you going to be able to finish with a choke or an arm bar when you get to the back, or even finish with a ground and pound. So it's always good to have another option when you're on someone's back. So the calf slicer is just a really easy option. If you have the hooks in, it's very easy to circle off, get that calf slicer. There's a lot of other options from there too. You can get to the truck and do like banana split, but even if you have a good position, not always are you going to be able to finish from there. So you have to have backup options in case you can't do it. So that's why you would give up the back and you would go to another position. Plus, it's pretty easy to wrestle out of. Even if they defend the calf slicer, it's not hard to end up in a good position afterwards. Even when they defend, you have a good opportunity to like get back to the back, chase the back, or maybe even end up in a pin depending on how the scramble goes. So that's why you would give up the back to go for a calf slicer. Choke fails, go for calf slicer. Why not? Try it out. All right, so that was my last comment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and leave some more comments down below for the next Q&A. Let me know what you'd like to know. Give me some good questions, and maybe I'll answer them in the next Q&A. All right, ready? 1, 2.